Hey guys, DesolatorMagic here, and it's time to talk about something that may or may not affect you at your local gaming store. At every single one that I've been to, this has come up, which is hilarious. First, there was LGS number 1, where I first started playing. It shut down because the owner's kind of a dick. But when we were there, one guy would always show up with his 9-year-old daughter, and she would just destroy everybody with one of his OP as crap overpowered decks. She actually wasn't that great of a player. Like, she maxed out an X spell while I had a Judge's Familiar on the field, so I just made it cost one more. Oops. But, I mean, you could put a chimpanzee behind one of those decks and they'll win eventually. She ranked in the top a couple times, so that was interesting. You know, everybody would make fun of whoever lost to her, too. They'd be like, haha, you got beat by a 9-year-old. And I'm like, guys, come on, quit being rude. But I think we all knew that it was in good fun. And, like, her dad was super cool, too. Then there's LGS number 2, which on and off had quite a few kids there, actually. Mostly a group from the local school, but sometimes it was, people's kids, people's younger siblings, that sort of thing. And they would show up and typically do absolutely terrible, but they'd actually have fun, which I cannot say about most of the people there. That's the one that I quit going to fairly recently because, honestly, I can't stand about 50% of the people there. They are complete jerks. Their goal in life is to, 1, win at all costs, whether they have to cheat or lie or whatever, and then 2, make everybody else's life miserable while they're there. So why would I keep going to that local gaming store? Just because of the size? I don't think so. Plus the staff was really, really rude. So because of those 2 reasons, honestly, a lot of the little kids that were going to that local gaming store stopped. They said they just didn't like the other players. They weren't friendly. They kept complaining about their play. I mean, we're talking about people who were new to the game. It was unbelievable. But as for the kids themselves, most of them were pretty well behaved. So, they were like real serious, mature, played the game, properly. Yeah, they made mistakes, but they weren't like cheating or anything. But there were 2 kids in particular that I can think of that were just totally immature. And I think they were like older than some of the ones that were playing like an adult. They would, try to double drop a land and laugh about it like it was a joke, and just, their friends would come up and like steal a card off the table and run around with it because they, were like helping out their friend and it was all a joke. And I'm all for having fun, but come on, I want to play a serious match and it is a DCI certified game. If it was just casual messing around, I mean, we usually do stuff like that. Me and my group of friends, we've done that and weirder. I mean, I'll grab one of their cards while they're in the bathroom re-sleeving one of my sleeves and then shuffle it into my deck so that next game we find it and they're like, where is it? Just funny practical joke stuff. But that's, up until that point, I had never seen somebody, we'll say like 14 or under, just completely like disrupt play and just be like a bad player that you didn't want to get paired up against. My new local gaming store, there's only one little kid that I know of, and it's somebody's kid who also plays there. They're both super cool. He's actually 9, and he's an incredibly good player. He actually came in 2nd place at the pre-release. I just couldn't even believe it. This is the Shadows pre-release. He beat a longtime player who had been to like a lot of national tournaments and stuff. And he never actually directly played him, I don't think. So it actually came down to like one of those, strength of opponent tiebreaker things. So, I mean, technically he's sort of tied for first place if you think about it. He either had a perfect record or a near perfect record. And yeah, he's really good at playing. I don't know if I've ever specifically played against him myself, though, yet. But from the games I watched, I didn't see him make, more mistakes than the average person. So that was pretty impressive for a 9-year-old. And he's like quite calm and mature and just not at all like some 13-year-olds I know from the old LGS. Now, I'm not hating on anybody saying kids shouldn't show up or nothing. Obviously, with the 9-year-old girl crushing everybody and the 9-year-old kid at the new one just demolishing people at big-level tournaments, why not have them show up to FNM? But then the other thing is Wizards does not allow any local gaming store, if they're in the Wizards Play Network, to restrict it by age at all. So I guess if a 5-year-old wants to play, you have to let them. I wouldn't. I mean, I'm sure there's some kind of judgment called or exception for that. That you got to make sure the players actually really know how to play. But I think the youngest player I've ever seen play properly was about 8 or 9, which is pretty impressive. Now, way back in high school, for, I guess, psychology class or biology or some dumb thing, I did a report on, like, brain development. And this is where it gets interesting, because some of those younger players, like 9, 10, 11, they were better players, either better at the game or just not a jerk and not disruptive and not annoying and not cheating and not, just being a dick to everybody. Like, much more so than some of the 16-year-olds and the 18-year-olds and even the 25-year-olds. And especially specifically one guy in his 30s. I guarantee he knows who he is because everybody hates him, and I swear if I ever have to see him again, I am going to probably, there's like a 50-50 chance I'll just punch him in the face, knock him clear out. So how is it that little kids can be more calm, proper, polite players and better at the game, honestly, than like a 14-year-old, for example? Well, as it turns out, right around 12 or so, sometimes 11, the average human's prefrontal cortex starts to rewire itself. It grows a whole bunch of new neuron branches, and then much later, like 18 to 25, it starts kind of trimming off the ones that it deems unnecessary. But while it's rewiring itself, it doesn't work quite properly. And you've probably heard about this. It's been in like every, scientific magazine ever and every textbook, so this isn't exactly news to anybody. But that's the part of the brain that controls like thinking about actions and what consequences they'll have before you take an action. So you think, hey, is this a good idea? Hey, if I do this, what'll happen afterwards? It's kind of like a, chronological thing, but it's not like your actual sense of time. It's just like logic. It's like the wisdom part of the brain, I guess you could say. Now, if that sounds an awful lot like something you would need in Magic the Gathering, you are correct. You need to think way ahead. Now, this study has been correlated more closely with chess because you have to think really far ahead in chess, but it's not like an abstract thing. It's like an encapsulated box with rules, so thinking ahead can be more of a cold logic than like a spontaneous decision-making type of thing. But in Magic, holy cow, is it all over, the place. And I've seen a lot of kids that come in, between, we'll say, 12 and 18, basically, and they're just bad at sensing what I'm going to do, and they're really bad at thinking of combos between their own cards, and it's just weird, but, I'm not going to remind them if it's a serious match. And then you see like a 9 or 10-year-old and they're just playing flawlessly. Like as long as they know the rules and they're serious about the game, they're going to make a lot less mistakes like that. They're going to say, hey, if I do this, what is going to happen? If I play this, what might be the reaction? And they're constantly naturally thinking about that because they actually still have a fully functional prefrontal cortex. That's like my 8th attempt at saying that for some reason. I cannot say prefrontal cortex, but if I said PFC, everybody would think I'm talking about PF Chang's. And I hope that your local gaming store has a fully functional PF Chang's somewhere nearby. I gotta settle for like some other chain ones and the OD, the Old Dirty Chinese Restaurant. We just call it the OD. We also joke that if somebody gets a buy, it's like sponsored by Subway because that's usually where they go. So it's like, I gotta buy, and then somebody's like, eat fresh. But anyway, have any of you noticed this pattern, and is it a complete anomaly to have a well-behaved, proper player that's 10? Do you have any obnoxious 13-year-olds that make you want to pick up the table and hit them with it, but then you'd probably get like some kind of harsher jail sentence because they're a minor? Have any kids been caught doing something really stupid like stealing or like cheating or, something stupid that a kid would do that apparently the well-behaved kids I've played with don't do? I mean, honestly, I would say the worst experience I've had playing with like a young kid, like a preteen, would be one who had, just started playing, and I was playing a life gain ultra delay deck. Like, we're talking if I'm playing with a pro that's been to like all kinds of GPs, it's still probably going to drag the game out to the time limit, and we're probably not going to get in 3 games, maybe not even 2. But anyway, the kid was taking so long to like read his cards and stuff, that the first game actually took about 42 minutes out of the 50-minute round. We started the second one, and I mean, I could just blitz and just win in 4 minutes of play plus the 3-turn, 3-2 flip limit, aka take 5 turns at the time limit. But that didn't happen, so it was a 1 win on his side and then a tie. Now, the next week, I actually played one of the kid's friends, who was even worse at Magic, and the first game went to a tie because he was running a similar delay deck. And it had just enough control to stop my big guys from getting in with Sunbond and all that. And, I was kind of mad, but I wasn't going to be like, oh my god, play faster, play better, you're terrible. You don't do that to a new player. Like, even though it cost me my performance at Friday Night Magic, you just don't do that. Except that a ton of other players did that because, like I said, they're a bunch of dicks, and that kid and his friend stopped showing up quite a while ago. But you should have seen the look on the kid's face because he knew who I was. He knew I was a very good longtime player. He knew I was an RA for another LGS. And, you know, I built original decks and they were solid and I won quite often with them. So he considered me one of the people where as soon as he sits down, he's not going to win. So he dragged it out to the point where it was a tie and he just about had a heart attack when I told him, yeah, I mean, you take 3 turns and if you can't win in 3 turns, that's it. And on the 5th turn, I was like, there's nothing I can do with cards in my hand to beat you. So I just basically like scooped, but not really. We just went to the tie. And I think that just about made his whole damn week. He went around telling people he beat me, which, you know, normally kind of irks me a little bit. I mean, if like one of the 30-year-olds does that, goes around telling his friends, oh, I beat Des, then we like go outside and settle that in the parking lot. That's right. Street Magic with David Blaine. You guys ever play Magic in the alleys at like midnight, you know, with like headlamps on? That's extreme Street Magic right there. Usually, actually, they'd go out to smoke and I'd walk out and then, you know, threaten to harm them severely. But not little kids, because they're so polite players, apparently. So has that been your experience if you've had little kids at your local gaming store? Or have you had it be a complete disaster, just completely the opposite as me? I mean, have you ever had like a group of little kids kicked out for acting like a couple morons? Have you ever had a group of teenagers or adults kicked out for being a bunch of morons? I know I have. I've actually asked this to some of my friends, and they came up with some hilarious stories. So, you know, because they've been to other gaming stores, they've moved from other states and stuff like that. And I've talked to them and been like, hey, you know, I just played with that kid. And like, honestly, he's better than like that dude over there. And they're always like, yeah, that kid beat me. What the hell? And then we start talking about, yeah, there was this kid at this other gaming store, and, you know, he swept. And then there's this kid at the GP, you know, he was like 11, and he went like 6-2 or something or whatever. I don't know. So if you've got a great story, leave it down in the comments section, which I'm sure will be filled with lovely tales of crazy kids. But most importantly, the whole point of this video was, have you noticed that like the 9 to like 11-year-olds are better players, more polite players, and more like thoughtful, wise players making less mistakes than like 12 and up, you know, up to, I think they said even 23, 24 in certain scientific journals. That's when your brain actually functions correctly. Because I think we just have really exceptionally smart kids at my local gaming stores or something, because the one catch to all of this is that from age 10 to age 22, your brain will, at that point, at 22, be double the total processing power. Now, obviously, that depends how you measure it, but just in, like, sheer brain power, speed of doing, like, math, speed of doing, like, photo recognition and certain, like, video game-related tasks, it's on average about double the capabilities. So if you have half of a functional brain, how are you going to play as good as like a 30-year-old? But they're doing it, and honestly, I was smarter than most adults when I was that age. Well, my IQ is a little above average, so maybe I had a better starting point. So, you know, you take a high amount and cut it in half, and it's still a pretty high amount, I guess. I don't know. You can tell I'm not a biology specialist, a psychologist, or a neurosurgeon. Or I mean like a psychological, I don't know. I can't the thinking today, brain not good. Caffeine reserves running low. So anyway, if you got a great story, leave it down in the comment section. Otherwise, I will see you guys next video.